Welcome to the Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals, June 13th, 2023 meeting. We have a long agenda today. Mr. Skinner, will you please call the order? Call the roll. I apologize.
Corey Conagay.
Here.
Dominic Epps.
Present.
Richard Esley.
Here.
Melissa Venable.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any corrections to the previous BZA minutes? If not, may I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All approved say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Terrific. Our first agenda item this afternoon is BZA 10-2023, address 201 North 4th Street, and the applications by T&C Capital LLC. Mr. Skinner, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 10-2023. The applicant, T&C Capital LLC, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yards adjacent to a street setback from 25 feet to 5 feet, and the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35F LL1. The address is 201 North Capitol Street. Zoning classification, medium density RM. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street setback from 25 feet to 5 feet and the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of your motion. We will now have staff report by Jennifer Cobb.
Good afternoon, board members.
Good afternoon.
As previously stated, the applicant T&C Capital LLC is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 20 feet to 5 feet, and the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35F*L1*1, located at 201 North 4th Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Whaleyville Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a public notice sign was posted on the property. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street in the interior side yard in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The dimensional requirements for newly platted lots in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. This lot is approximately 3,300 square feet in land area, making the lot legally non-conforming. The width of any newly constructed home must be a minimum of 20 feet wide. This lot is located on the corner of North 4th and Bank Street, which both require a 25-foot front setback. Public Works and Traffic have both reviewed the proposed development and have no concerns or comments with the proposed reduced setback along Mason Avenue. Due to the inability to construct a 20-foot wide home on the lot and meet the required setbacks, staff recommends approval of this request. And they did provide a conceptual layout for the property. And I'm available for any comments or questions the board may have.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions for Ms. Cobb? We'll now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Yes. My name is Tamika White. I reside at 600 Washington Street in the city of Portsmouth, and I'm here to represent T&C Capital LLC. I purchased the property or the lot at 201 North 4th Street on March 29, 2023, and I'm here today asking for the interior setback from 10 feet to 5 feet and the exterior setback from Bank Street corner from 25 feet to 5 feet. My builder is Brian Meekins. He's built, the plan that we're using is already pre-approved in the city, and I purchased this property or this lot in good faith to add value to the community.
This is your time to present to us. When we close the hearing, we can come back and ask you questions. So if you have anything in addition, please go ahead and add that now.
No, nothing additional.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Seeing none, ma'am, do you have anything to add? Okay, thank you. That'll close this hearing. Do we have any questions, comments, or a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Epps and a second from Mr. Carnegie. Discussion of the motion? Mr. Skinner, will you please call for a vote?
Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Dominic Epps,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Congratulations, ma'am. Our next item today is BZA 11-2023, 233 North 5th Street by Mr. Steve Daniels. Mr. Skinner, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 11-2023. The applicant, Daniel Construction Corporation, is requesting a variance to reduce the side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35F, LH 17. The address is 233 North 5th Street. Zoning classification, residential medium density, RM. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff report by Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator.
As previously stated, the applicant, Steve Daniels of Daniels Construction Corporation, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35F, *LIH, *17, located at 233 North 5th Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Welleyville Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15-2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was posted on the property. This applicant is requesting the variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks in order to construct a new single-family dwelling, as the dimensional standards for newly platted lots in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. This lot is approximately 3,300 square feet in land area, making it the lot legally non-conforming. The width of any newly constructed home must be a minimum of 20 feet wide, and due to the inability to construct a 20-foot wide home on this lot, staff recommends approval of this request. Here is the survey showing the reduced side setbacks and also the elevations of the proposed dwelling, which she has model plans on file. And I'm available for any questions the board may have following the public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. We will open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Daniels from Suffolk. As you know, this project is bring a homeowner into the neighborhood. We're doing a lot of projects out here, and we're really making a lot of great moves out here in this neighborhood. It's going through a lot of renovation, a lot of revitalization. This will be part of it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Daniels? Thank you very much. That closes this public hearing. Do we have any questions or comments or a motion?
Motion for approval, but he has the next one also. Is he asking for the same thing? Could we do both of them at the same time? Is that possible?
It's basically the same staff report.
Yes,
Okay.
so I,
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll have a motion. We have a motion on the table for both, BZA 11 and BZA 12, 2023. We have a motion for approval of both for the for the side yard setbacks. Do we have a second on this, for this motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and I just want to add as well for the last application, this motion is being made with the 8 findings in mind that we have in our application that shows that there is a hardship to build on these. We were supposed to note that, and we haven't done that, so I apologize. So we have a motion for approval and a second. Any conversation in regard to that?
Yeah, one question for Mr. Daniels. Mr. Daniels, on any of these parcels, are you looking to put a fence up?
Not initially, that would be for the homeowner if they decide. A lot of the colors and final details be determined for the buyers, as you know. They will have patios, but a lot of exterior final touches will be up to the buyers.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additional questions or comments? No? Mr. Skinner, would you please call for a vote?
Corey Cornegay,
yes.
Dominique Epps,
Yes.
Richard Esser,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes,
The motion passed, both motions passed.
terrific. Congratulations, Mr. Daniels. Our next item on the agenda is BZA 13, 2023. Sorry about that. The applicant is Erica and Kenya Bowden. And this is at 329 Declaration Lane. Mr. Skinner, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 13, 2023. The applicant, Eric and Kenya Bowden, are requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 6 feet for an existing 6-foot tall privacy fence. The property is identified as tax map 27M141. The address is 329 Declaration Lane. Zoning classification residential low medium, RLM. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 6 feet for an existing 6-foot privacy fence. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your motion, in your package, must be articulated as part of the motion. We now have staff report by Mary Ann Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon. Proper protocol has already been established. My name is Melvian Knight, and I am the Assistant Zone Administrator for the City of Suffolk. Today, I'll be presenting staff report BZA 13-2023 for 329 Declaration Lane. The applicants, Eric and Kenya Bowden, are requesting a variance request from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses L, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 6 feet for an existing 6-foot tall privacy fence. The property is identified as tax map in parcel 27M*141, located at 329 Decoration Lane, Suffolk, Virginia, Suffolk voting borough, zoning classification RM residential medium. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicants, Eric and Kenya Bowden, submitted an application to the Board of Zoning Appeals to reduce the side yard setback adjacent to a street, Freedom Lane, from 25 feet to 6 feet for an existing 6-foot-tall privacy fence. Per the applicant, the 6-foot-tall privacy fence was installed to provide safety barrier from vehicles traveling along the public street and reduce the possibility of damage to the resident's home. On September 21st, 2022, a former inspector conducted a neighborhood sweep for unpermitted signage within the subdivision of Patriots Walk. During the sweep, a former inspector discovered the unpermitted privacy fence present on the northwest corner of Decoration Lane and Freedom Lane. The inspector made contact with the property owner and the contractor on the same day and suggested the parties submit an application to submit proper permits to remedy the violation present on the site. According to the city records, a zoning application from Ryan Smith of Dream Decks LLC was received requesting an after-the-fact permit for a 6-foot privacy fence erected on the corner lot. Due to the location of the unpermitted fence along Freedom Lane, a correction required email was sent to the applicant on September 21st, which was addressed to Dream Decks LLC. Per section 701, parentheses B, parentheses 10A of the Unified Development Ordinance, it states that a fence no more than 6 feet in height may be located in any required yard or required yard other than a required yard adjacent to a street. A fence or wall not more than 6 feet in height may be located in any planting, screening / access easement adjacent to a street serving as a double front and or reverse frontage lot, except as allowed above. No fence or wall shall create a solid screen may exceed 2 1/2 feet in height in any required yard adjacent to a street, except that fences having a uniform and open 50% or more may be erected a max height of 4 feet in such required yard. The height shall be measured from the average ground level adjacent to, the height shall be measured from the adjacent ground level adjacent to the fence or wall. No fence or wall shall encroach within the visibility triangle. The corrections required email stated that the location of the existing fence must be relocated to the 25-foot side yard setback adjacent to the public street or reduce the height of the fence to 4 feet with a uniform opening of 50%. The applicant revised the application to reflect the relocation of the 6-foot-tall fence to the 25-foot setback. The applicant revised the application to reflect the relocation of the 6-foot-tall fence to the 25-foot setback adjacent to this side street, the side adjacent to the public street. As of today, the date of this submission, the 6-foot-tall privacy fence still remains in the same location and does not reflect the approved location per the zoning permit issued to GZN 2022-02596 dated September 22nd, 2022, which stated that a installed 210 linear feet of tan vinyl fence with a gate 10 feet, approved revised 6-foot fence as shown on a new survey, finished side facing out. The revised permit granted the contractors and the property owner 6 months from the date of insurance to relocate the 6-foot-tall fencing to the location shown on the revised survey. However, it appears that the fence has remained an encroachment within the required side yard adjacent to the public street. The findings of the applicant's hardship show the following. The location of 239 Decoration Lane can meet the requirements of section 31-701 parentheses B, parentheses 10A by relocating the 6-foot fence to a distance of 25 feet in the side yard adjacent to the public street, or reduce the height of the fence to 4 feet with 50% opening to the requested location. Therefore, staff recommends denial of this request. What's currently up on the screen is just the copy of the permit that was in the record that was issued on 9/22/22, which states the same information that was provided within the report to DreamDex LLC. This is a copy of the revised survey, which was issued on 9/22 to the applicant. I've also zoomed in so that you can see the area where they revised the location for it to be flush with the side of the morning room in the rear yard area. And then we also have images that were provided, just illustrations of showing of where the location of the current fence is in proximity to the corner lot. This is another angle coming from the north side of the street and as well as from the sidewalk area. This concludes staff's presentation for this application. I'm available for questions, and I think the applicant is also here for the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Melvion. So for clarity, this was provided, which you just showed on screen. So if this fence was moved to this location, it would be in
Yes, ma'am.
conformity?
That would have been, this was the copy that was approved on 9/22. So it showed the original that was submitted on the 21st, which was the one that was shown in red. Go back to it. This one was the one that was submitted on the 21st, which showed that the yellow area that's highlighted is the front yard area, which allows for the 4-foot fence, 50% open.
Right.
If they are still trying to keep the 6-foot tall fence, they would have to adjust it to the area located outside of the yellow area highlighted on the survey.
Got it. And was this fence permitted by the city of Suffolk?
It was not permitted at the time of installation, so the permit we received was an after fact.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Could you flip back to show the pictures of the fence again, if you don't mind? Yeah, that one. That's what I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. We will now open our public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good evening. I'd like to first start by stating that I contracted DreamDex to install.
State your name, ma'am. I'm sorry.
My name is Kenya Bowden.
Okay,
Eric Bowden.
thank you.
I contracted DreamDex to install my fence, provided a survey. We walked the lot, and I informed him where I would like for the fence to be and my concerns of why I wanted the fence to go there. Unbeknownst to me, I knew if I contracted somebody, they knew what they were supposed to be doing. On let me get my notes. On 9/20, Mr. Ryan reached out to me and informed me that he could install my fence and that he already received the permit from the city. Everything was a go. So I was like, okay, great. On 9/21, when he came out to install the fence at 6:30 in the morning, I asked him again, you have the permit? He told me yes. It wasn't until that evening time when Mr. Alexander, a representative from, let me start back. My HOA representative came to my home that morning, and she asked me some questions. I gave her the responses about whether or not, he submitted the paperwork. And then that evening, Mr. Alexander came to the home, and he rang the doorbell. I came out. He explained who he was and that Mr. Ryan had applied for the permit, but he was not approved for the permit. I have it on my camera where he told me that he was approved and his secretary had it. So I didn't know that he didn't have the permit. By this time, he had already run through and put the fence up. So Mr. Alexander told him that he had to make it right, make sure he got the permit done. Unbeknownst to me, I got sick in the process. Unbeknownst to me, Mr. Ryan came down here on his own accord, submitted a survey that he had moved the fence, and he did not. We was going back and forth about you need to put it in the right location, or you need to apply for the waiver as they told us so that we can keep it where it is for safety issues. He told me back and forth in text message that he did and that everything was okay. It was until I came down myself to the city and found out that he did not, and I obtained all the paperwork where he submitted stuff that he did not do, and I applied for the variance, which is why we're here today to get the hearing. Also didn't know until now that he received an email from Ms. Knight on the 21st at 3:43, clearly stating to him that if he wanted the fence there, the steps that he had to take. So had he did the permit or had the permit like he told me he did, none of this, I would be going through this right now. I asked for the fence to be there because we're on a corner lot and the people speed tremendously. We had people jump the curb to mess up my grass, and my dining room, my kitchen, and my morning room is right there. I have a young child, my only child, and if we're sitting there and somebody come through my house, we don't have any kind of barrier or anything. I know the fence is not gonna stop it, but it's some kind of safety net to say, hey, at least if we hear the noise, it'll at least slow it down enough to where we could get out of the way or anything. I have letters from my adjacent neighbors on Freedom, Civil, and Declaration stating that the fence is not an issue, it doesn't pose any visibility, and they are in agreement with the placement of the fence for safety. I have a copy for you to look at. I also have our Facebook group where they discussed that speeding is an issue and how sad it is it's gonna be until it's too late for somebody get hurt. I just wanna provide a safety place for my home, my child, and my family. I'm not trying to bend no rules, break no rules. As soon as I was able and I was feeling better, I came down here to make it right. I've been in constant communication with Mr. Alexandra. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm going back and forth to court now with Mr. Ryan because he caused all of this confusion. And I just don't need all of this unnecessary stress on me with all the health issues that I have going on right now. So we're just asking if you would please approve the 6-foot fence in the location that it is. It's been installed since August of last year. It hasn't posed any issues, none of the neighbors, and I have the letters here, the copies for you guys to review if you would like, have any issues with the fence at all. And I also have the Facebook where I highlighted the different things for you guys to take a look at as well. And I do have also video footage of one of my neighbors telling me the day of the installation before any paperwork, she knew if any paperwork was approved, that when we make you take it down, let's see what you do.
Thank you, ma'am. When we close the public hearing, we can ask you to come back for questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak against the application?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
My name is Glenda White. I am a neighbor. I'm actually at 120 Freedom Lane across the street, and I'm also the vice president of the board. Today I'm acting in capacity as a homeowner. 329 Declaration Lane sits in a corner lot, and based on the location of the fence, it is a safety hazard. We have children riding their bikes next to it. We have people jogging. We have people walking their dogs. There is no way that they're going to see a child, especially on a bike, with that fence as far up as it is. None at all. We do have a speeding issue in the neighborhood, and we're trying to fix that. We've gotten with the city of Suffolk regarding the speeding traps and everything. There's a middle medium that's, you can't really see it. I have pictures of the middle medium that's there, that Suffolk advises needs to be there. If they hit a curb, if they hit that middle medium right there, actually you can see it in that picture, it runs right into my house. There is no way that it would hit another home in that corner except for mine at 120 Freedom Lane, and possibly my neighbor to my right. If you're making a right, there's no way you're hitting that. You're hitting the curb to go on the grass. but my house is the one going to get the most hit from anyone coming down that street. Several people have hit that medium, and where the car faces is my home. It doesn't face anywhere else. I'm asking that this is not approved for the safety of myself and my family and the neighborhood children riding their bikes, people jogging. There's no way you can see any visibility there. It is a hazard. And I do have additional pictures that I'd like to present as well. Also, I received a call from one of the homeowners that this fence can possibly be encroaching on their property as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing none, is there anything else you'd like to add, ma'am? Yes.
As she testified to that, when they do jump the curb, we had tire marks in our grass. We have had car parts in our grass, and the only person that it would be an issue to is Miss Lanika Brown, who is directly behind me. She would have been here, but she could not because she was out of town. She's been out of town, but she would have been here to testify. If anybody would have had any issue, it would be her because she shares the fence with me. And secondly, this is the same woman that I have on my camera the day of the fence threatening me with, when we make you take it down, we'll see what you do then. And I told her, well, you do what you have to do and I'll do what I have to do. So she's the only person. If you take note of those letters, everyone surrounding her, and including Down Freedom, Down Declaration, they are everyone in our neighborhood on that street that this fence would have any issues with. Everybody says that they don't have an issue with that fence and they don't know what she's talking about.
And they also have, they also have small children too, like Ms. Glenda spoke of. So that was taken into consideration as we were having these discussions with those residents.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll close our public hearing this afternoon for BZA 13-2023. Do we have questions, comments?
I have a question for staff. Have you all received any phone calls from any neighbors, and do you have some type of what number that was of anyone that was opposed to the fence or had any safety concerns?
Yes, we have received calls from neighbors. I think that this week alone, we've received a total of approximately 4. Only one spoke in opposition to the actual fence being installed. The others were just inquiring to see exactly what the meaning of today's hearing. So that was about it.
Is there a chance that, and this is, as you all know, I am not a fan of 6-foot fences along public streets. I think it sets a poor precedent. But I do think there's some visibility issues with driving and especially with this type of height. Has anybody done any kind of sight triangle at the city to see if this obstructs any visibility coming from the roadway that is along the frontage of this home?
Well, according to the final subdivision that was approved back in 2017, the only area that has the sight triangle is the portion that is along where Freedom Lane
Right.
and Decoration meets. Anything that's outside of that triangle would not pose a problem. The only thing that we were able to see is the fact that it is projecting out, let's see, the area here.
Right.
For the person that would be coming from the lot that's directly behind hers. However, that area is outside of the site triangle. So we wouldn't really note it as a problem or a concern. However, it would be something that we would pay attention to.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Do we have
welcome.
any other questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I just have a comment.
Sure.
Looking at this photo of the median, right, to me, it almost, you can't see it from up here, but this photo here that shows the median, to me, it almost looks as if it, the median is going to let you know as far as where these cars are going, right? So you already know because that median is there, it's not as if someone is going to just, unless they just jump the median to cross lanes, right? So to me, that almost kind of helps out the homeowner when you're looking at the fact of, yes, there's a tall fence, but when you're looking at this photo that we have that the lady in opposition provided, it almost shows as if, okay, if a car is coming from, let's say east, going up towards that stop sign, that median's there to separate that vehicle, right? So it's not like there was no median and cars is just flying around this corner without them hitting that median. So.
I think the issue, though, that certainly is an important issue. Safety is always our first concern. But this is contrary to what our Suffolk public ordinance allows. We don't allow 6-foot fences within the right-of-way. So the question is this something we want to make an exception for, or do we want to ask these folks to move it back to where it's permitted to be?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, too, before we entertain a motion. This is a classic example of a contractor not doing his job. And the lesson to be learned here is that the homeowner needs to be sure that the contractor has done what they're supposed to do to permit, because if it had, permit had been requested, as the fence is now, it would have been turned down. And so I have an issue with that. And I also have an issue with, I know the lady that spoke in opposition says she was on the board, but the homeowners association is handled probably by a management company. And I would think that the management company would have an issue with approving this or letting it stand because it's not legal. And then that would be setting an example that if they can do it, then somebody else can do it. So from my comments, you can probably ascertain that I'm leaning against letting the fence stay where it is.
Mr. and Mrs. Bowden, and I apologize if I am mispronouncing that. Do you have, in your homeowners association that you have set up, do you please approach, do you have to submit anything to your homeowners association for approval?
Yes, and we submitted it and it was approved as long. Recently just received another one because Ms. Glenda keeps coming down here to ask about it. So we received another one saying it is outside of the setback line. And I keep communicating with them that I was waiting for a date at that particular moment. I let them know what my date was before anybody received the letter. And here we are now. So once we finish today, if you guys approve, we let them know it's approved. If you disapprove, we let them know it's disapproved. And we have to move accordingly.
But you didn't receive approval from the homeowners association before you moved forward with Dreamscapes or whatever?
We received approval saying that it was approved as long as it's within the guidelines and all of that of the city.
I see.
And again, unbeknownst to us, I thought Mr. Ryan from Dreamdex
Sure.
was on the up and up and that he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later when Mr. Alexandria came when I found out different. I apologize for not knowing the rules and the laws, but I feel like when you contract somebody, they're
Right.
supposed to know what they're doing.
That's right.
And here we are just trying to litigate what is already done.
Got a question for you. So since it's been up, it's been a year, right?
Going on a year,
Going
yes.
a year. Have there been any other communications from the HOA?
Only because Ms. Glenda keeps pushing it.
Yeah, she's the only one that's really pushing it from the HOA side.
And that's what they told us. Before Bill left, who was the HOA representative, he told us that she kept calling so much that he had to drive past my home to see what the issue was, and he couldn't find anything. I'm willing to subpoena him or whatever needs to be done, but I just need this headache behind me. But it's only an issue because she keeps pushing it. She's not representing the HOA, she's only representing herself.
Right,
And
right,
again,
right.
I spoke with everyone surrounding her and on the street. No one has an issue that doesn't pose visibility. It doesn't have anything. I just need safety for my family, and that's all we're asking for today. I know it's not gonna stop a car, and if we look at it from this way, the speeding comes from Freedom up to Declaration. They drive down that median. Car parks, tire marks, all of that being a drive. We have to clean up, we have to do all of that. It's constantly. If you look in the emails from our HOA, it's a bad issue. They put speeding signs in the beginning, in the middle. We need them in the end. They talking about they wanted bumpers. I just want some type of safety net. I know 6 foot is not appealing to some people's eyes, but a 4 foot really is not gonna do much. If a car, and I get what you guys saying if it's coming this way, but it's more than one direction that these cars come in. I see them on their cell phones, they don't stop for the stop signs. I have yelled because she's always hit one of the little boys across the street for cars to slow down, stop speeding, and pay attention to the stop signs. I'm just asking for safety, that's it. Thank you.
She said something also about that the fence is approaching on a neighbor's yard, but I don't see where, yeah, I don't.
It's not approaching.
It's
It would be approaching on Miss Brown's yard, and it's not. And actually, this corner that you're looking at, the corner is actually approved. That is considered, quote unquote, my backyard. I did not know this. When we purchased the home, they walk you around, they give you the bells and the whistles. Oh, this is this. It was never told to me that that was my front yard. It was like, this is how much backyard you have, and this is what you can do with it, this and this and this, because we entertained a pool. It wasn't until the home was up and they put the little blue markers down in the grass when we learned that, oh, my backyard is not as big as they told me it was before I purchased it. Oh, this is not how this is before I purchased it. So they dangle all this stuff in front of your face to get you to buy the lot. And then once you buy it, you kind of stuck because you signed on the line. I never knew that this was my front yard until I started digging into this about the fence. So this is considered my front yard. But where my morning room ends until where the last post is, that's exactly what you guys approve. So that's not encroaching on anything because that is what you approve. It is only from the beginning of my morning room up to that front post that poses an issue that they're saying needs to be 4 foot. But that's exactly where the problem comes in, that if they're turning or coming up and they go down the median.
Well, it either needs to be 4 foot where it sits
So-
currently, or it needs to be pulled back to the.
So from that 3.2 mark up to that, where that red 15 is, that is what they're saying should be 4 foot. That is the part that poses an issue.
Right.
But everything else back there is considered my backyard, and that's what you guys actually approve. So it's not encroaching on anything.
I have a question for Ms. Linda, is that her name? Lady of the Post? Yes. Ms. Linda, all right, so you stated when you came up that you are just representing yourself. Is that because the HOA actually is in favor of the homeowners, or what is the communication from the board of the HOA?
Well, see, you kind of put me in a spot because I'm here as a homeowner. The day that this fence was going up, 6 o'clock in the morning, I was going to an appointment. I approached a gentleman that was putting up the fence, and I said, hey, where's this fence going? He said, oh, it's going right there. I said, oh, is it going directly behind her shed? Which isn't 5 feet, by the way. He said, yes. I said, well, it can't be. It has to be 5 feet from the shed. He said, okay. Left, came back. You know, up to this day, I never walked back to her to apologize, but I came to her and I said, hey, something to the effect, did you put a request in for the HOA? Because I went home and already checked, and so I knew the answer before I even approached her. There was no request put in for this fence prior to that day. The request was put in September 21st, which is the day the fence, I believe, went up. September 21st is when the request was put in for this fence. The fence was already up or going up.
So the fence was, okay, so the fence, was it completed in one day, or?
I believe it was completed in one day, yes. Yes, so the request, I have the timestamp of when the management company received it.
I got you. Did the HOA approve it because it was already up? It was like,
No,
hey-
we have not approved a thing.
Oh, so
We
it wasn't
approved it because what happened was I did not want the ARB committee to be biased. So myself and the president spoke, And he said, you know what, let them do their job. Do not tell them that the fence is already up. Because if I had told her, she would have declined it right away. They would have, rather, declined it right away, because it is all out of compliance, according to our declaration. But we didn't do that. We didn't do that because we wanted them to make a decision based on the declaration, and that's when they said, we approved it with the fact that it adheres to the setback and the declaration document, which it's not.
My question is, I know like in my area or my HOA and everything is, we can't have 6-foot fences in my neighborhood.
City of Suffolk, you can't.
But
Got you.
I'm in Suffolk, but I'm saying like in yours, it seems like y'all have 6-foot fences everywhere. It's no
We have
I'm just saying, with me
Understood.
seeing, I didn't see no 4-foot
Fence. Because everybody in a corner lot it's the corner lot that has to be the 4-foot, with the 50% open.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's only the corner lots.
Right, so with that being in your HOA policies or your guidelines, right? It's kind of hard for me to believe that the HOA would approve it unless they didn't have an issue with it, right? Because if the HOA had an issue with it, they would have said, hey, we'll not approve it. I don't care what the city says, but our HOA does not approve this fence. And then that would have been denied, and it wouldn't have been up to us to make the decision if we approve it or not. You all could have nipped it in the bud right then and there.
Well, guess what? We did. We didn't, as I said, we didn't receive the HOA request until the fence was up. We didn't receive it. And when she recently went ahead and refiled and sent us the documentation, and we said as long as it adheres to the setback, which means it's got to go back. To resubmit it back to us, once that's done, then it will be approved. But it was denied, the way it is currently, because we received it after. And this is what I was trying to avoid. That's why I went to her that morning to advise her. And that's when she found out nothing was placed in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have additional discussion, a motion. I would also just advise this has to be based on the 8 findings that relate to hardship.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to the homeowners, it does hurt my heart. You know, I'll be honest, I'm in favor of it, but I'm gonna be straightforward. I don't see it passing, but I am in favor of it only because I know the hardship that it takes for someone to have put their money out and have someone take their money and not go through the proper channels, right? But I don't know if the court is going to have this contractor make this right, or what the legal, you know, findings will end up with. So, yeah, but I will make a motion to approve it. I make a motion to approve it. So that's what I got.
We have a second for a motion of approval.
I'm going to second it, and the reason why I'm going to second it is because even if you put the 4-foot fence right there, it's still going to be a problem by your neighbor that's right there. So I'm going to go ahead and approve it, because even if you move this fence over to where it's showing here on the survey, that fence is directly on the side of your house. It's on your house. It's not like 5 feet. And it's looking at it's right here where it need the fence supposed to go at. It's on your house. So that's the reason why I'm saying yes.
So we have a motion for approval and a second. And just to clarify, the understanding is if this were denied, either the fence needs to move back to where that yellow line, that edge line is, or replaced where it's within the yellow with a 4-foot, 50% opaque fence. So we have a motion for approval and a second. Mr. Skinner, will you please call for a vote?
Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Dominique Epps,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
No.
Melissa Venable.
No.
The motion does not pass. So what we need now is, since it didn't carry, we need another motion.
I make a motion for denial of the request.
I would second that motion. So a motion for Mr. Eslick and a second by Ms. Venable.
This is a motion for denial. Corey Cornegay,
No.
Dominique Epps,
No.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
I have a suggestion. I think what we need to do is, I think we need to bring them both back. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the young lady that's denying it, that's on the board, she's stating that they didn't turn in their paperwork until that day that that fence was up. There's no way possible that someone is putting up a fence in one day. There's no way possible. They're not putting up that fence in one day. They did?
It starts 6:30 in the morning.
Well, I will say, I have been consistent over my 10 years of serving that I am not in favor of 6-foot opaque fences on corner lots. I'm just not, and there's not much that's going to change my mind. And it's not because I'm not sympathetic. I just think, I drive through Virginia Beach on those old fences that are along right-of-ways, and I hate to think that that's what Suffolk would turn into, where you have wooden fence and white fence and a different fence, and that's not the look Suffolk wanted when they passed the ordinance several years ago and with the requirements today. I do think if they could come back, if we could ask for a deferral and maybe.
We have to ask for one because we can't make a motion.
A tie and a tie.
one way or the other, so
Well, what I was going to, is maybe there's,
reopen the public.
or we can come to a meeting of the minds of maybe a slight shift that may help, or something different.
Here's my last comment, is that this fence has been up over close to a year. How many accidents have taken place with this fence up close to the past year? It's not like we're trying to forecast what could happen. They had a whole close to a year for incidents to take place, right? So are we looking at this from the standpoint of, I hear what you were saying, citywide and what the guidelines are.
Right.
But if we're speaking from a safety issue, kids went through the whole school year, and lady that's opposing is talking about safety, right? But if there have not been any issues safety-wise, how are we going to say, well, something can't happen if they had close to a year and nothing did happen? That's the only thing that I would say that will eliminate the talks about it being a safety concern with this 6 feet.
And with,
Excuse me, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Hold on a minute. Madam Chair, if I may, if you're going to speak, please come to the podium, and everyone else in with hats on, please take them off for me right now, provided there's no medical condition. Everyone speaking, please come to the podium, do not speak in the audience, please, and only if you're directed by the chair. Please do not raise hands or anything like that, because you're out of order.
I appreciate you. I'm sorry,
No problem.
officer.
I
I'm
will
sorry.
say, ma'am, the public hearing is closed, and I appreciate you approaching. I think we needed to make a decision here if we want to defer this for a month and
Well-
come back with additional information, because we don't have a decision, we don't have a good decision at the moment. Although and maybe you can tell me this, Ms. Cobb, if the motion doesn't pass, then I believe to be true that it was denied.
But we went on both sides of the fence, so it's kind of null and void. So we have not reached a conclusion, and we're not going to be able to reach a conclusion with the way the board is. Therefore, maybe on the next board meeting, we may have the
Fifth.
right, the fifth person, or there has to be some type of resolution that we can, maybe, the board can reach. And at this point, I don't think that's going
Right.
to happen.
So I would ask that we have a 30-day, we defer this for 30 days. I might also ask that maybe the homeowners association could get together, or maybe you can look at some modification to this that would be acceptable, but we can reconvene in 30 days.
I have one question for staff. Staff, is the homeowners being fined? Like, are there violations that, they're being fined while this fence is in the condition that it's in?
As it stands, the application is expired. So our next step following the resolution of the board would be to file a notice of violation for the fence being non-compliant with the side yard setback adjacent to the street. And then they would have 30 days to bring that into compliance before we move forward to the summons to appear in court.
Okay.
I have a comment, if you don't mind. Dominic mentioned he felt in his heart sorry for the homeowners. I feel sorry for them also. But it puts this board on the spot to try to correct a series of mistakes that have been made. And that becomes very difficult. And whatever we're going to do with a deferral, I'm going to request that we get some formal opinion from the homeowners association as to what their concerns or feelings are about the fence and where it's located. Because we have our rules and regulations, and I would like to have some input from the homeowners association. So if staff could contact whoever they need to contact to get an opinion from them as to what they suggest. And that would, not that I'm looking to take the total onus off of us as to what we do, but it would just be some added information that I think is important.
I agree.
Because I believe this is not the only corner lot that's in that neighborhood that's like that. It can't be. And if that is that other corner lot, a 6-foot fence up.
I think if we allow the HOA, it almost, because they're the ones living in the community at the end of the day, right? I think that would kind of help if we know how the HOA stand as a board. Do you all have a last question for the homeowner? Do you all have a full board, or is it just the president and the vice president? Or do you have, multiple people that make up the HOA?
As of now, it seems it's just Ms. Glenda and Mr. Terring who makes the decision. But I do have an approval based off of it being approved by the city. The day that I told you in question 920, Mr. Ryan submitted the paperwork because I sent him the email. When they received it, I don't know, but the paperwork was submitted. I also have, again, a letter that came days after saying, as long as it is approved by the city, the fence is approved.
Yeah, so right now it's not approved. So
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the issue that I'm going back. But as long as Ms. Glenda is sitting on the board, I told you, I have her on my camera saying, when we make you take it down, let's see what you do. As long as she's sitting there, I'm not going to get what you're asking from the HOA. So I guess at this point, I don't know. I'm at a standstill. We're at a standstill because it's not going to move. It's been up. It hasn't posed any issues. I get that it's not favorable for you, but we're just asking that the fence stay where it is. And the letters from the neighbors, the emails, I felt like if everybody was in agreement, it didn't pose visibility. That's what the letter stated. Nobody has any issue, and they have children that walk that path. The bus stop is on my corner. It hasn't been an issue all this long. We're just asking that it stay, please. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. So we'll hear this case again in 30 days, and if we can provide some additional information from the homeowners association, or if there's any fluctuation in your application, that certainly would be appreciated. We'll now move on to BZA 14, 2023, 401 Hunter Street, BC Branch Enterprises, Inc. Mr. Skinner, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 14, 2023. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprise, Inc. Incorporated, is requesting a variance to reduce the required yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35H 1C45. The address is 401 Hunter Street. Zoning classification, residential medium density RM. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet in order to construct a single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of your motion. We'll now have staff report by Melvion Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon again. I will be presenting the staff report for BZA 14-2023. The applicant is BC Branch Enterprises. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprises, is requesting a variance request from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses L, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to the street from 25 feet to 10 feet to construct a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35H, parentheses 1C45, located at 401 Hunter Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Wellerville, voting borough, zoning classification RM residential medium. This variance was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was posted pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant states that the RM zoning district setbacks will not allow for the development of the proposed 20-foot wide by 28 in length single-family home at the location of 401 Hunter Street. The dimensional requirements for a newly platted lot in the RM zoning district requires a total lot area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum frontage of 60 and a minimum lot width of 80 when measured at the front setback line. This property calculates to 3,585 square feet in land area, which is non-conforming when compared to the minimum standards required for the RM zoning district. According to the exhibits provided, the property will not support a 20-foot wide single-family dwelling. After further review of the Unified Development Ordinance, Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3, it allows for the zoning administrator to grant up to a 30% reduction for the side, rear, and front yard setbacks on substandard lots. Unfortunately, when comparing the request of 401 Hunter Street to the administrative variance guidelines, the reduction would exceed the 30% requirement or allowance to be granted by the zoning administrator. Therefore, with the property not supporting a 20-foot wide single-family dwelling on the substandard lot, staff recommends approval of the request. I have included in the presentation a copy of the survey, which shows the current condition of the property, and also shown an illustration of where the buildable space would be with the current setback established at the 25-foot setback along County Street. We also found information which dates back to Old Suffolk, shown here, a plat that was recorded in the old Nassau County records, which shows that previously, before the property became a corner lot, it appears that there was a parcel 46 that was beside parcel 45, which may have been absorbed by the expansion of the public street. Staff is available for any other questions that the board may have, and the applicant is present. Thank you.
Thank you, Melvion. We will now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Brennan Branch, 1500 Copeland Road, Suffolk. This is a little challenge because the lot was actually bigger and the road had taken it some years ago, a portion of it or the lot beside it. There was a previous house here before, so just looking for put another new construction here.
Anything additional, or we'll ask our questions when the public hearing is closed? Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone to speak against this application? Do you have anything additional, sir? That closes our public hearing. My first question is, I don't see any detailed elevations or any information in regard to this. This one here?
And approach. Yes, that was included prior to the beginning of the hearing. It was submitted by the applicant following the disbursement of your package. So it was included at your station before the session
Okay, I
started.
didn't recognize that there's no address or anything on this, so I didn't recognize.
Yeah, so that is a model home that's been approved by the city.
Right, okay, it looked real similar to Mr. Daniels, so I thought it was that one.
My apologies. I should
Thank
have
you, no, that's
addressed
fine,
it.
thank you so much. And this house footprint is the exact house footprint that fits this lot? Okay, perfect, thank you very much, I appreciate your information. Does anyone else have any questions or a motion?
A motion for approval. I see that he did do a great job this time with the driveway. He went away from the main street for safety reasons.
I second.
We have an approval from Mr. Carnegie, a second from Mr. Epps. Any conversation in regard to the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Skinner, will you please take a vote?
Corey Corrigan,
Yes.
Dominic Epps,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Congratulations, sir, thank you. All right, moving on to BZA 15, 2023, 230 Highland Avenue, Darrell Clemens. Mr. Skinner, will you please call the, I'm sorry, Mr. Skinner, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BCA 15, 2023. The applicant, Darrell Clemens, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10.52 feet in order to construct an addition. The property is identified as tax map 34G12, double parentheses 2H*20. The address is 230 Highland Avenue, zoning classification residential medium density RM. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10.52 feet in order to construct an addition. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff report by Melvion Knight, Assistant Zoning Administrator.
Before I start this presentation, that second handout that was along, yes, that is the illustrations that was provided by the applicant for you all. That was also received after disbursement of your packets. Okay. I will be presenting the staff report today for BZA 15-2023. The applicant, Darrell Clemens, property owner, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31-407, Table 407-1, Dimensional Standards, parentheses L, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10.52 feet in order to construct an addition. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 34G12, parentheses 2, H*20, located at 230 Highland Avenue, Suffolk, Virginia, Suffolk voting borough, zoning classification RM. The variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to the adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2-2204 of the Code of Virginia. A public notice sign was posted on the property pursuant to the request of the zoning administrator. The applicant states that the RM zoning district setbacks will not allow for the expansion of the existing 1930 single-family dwelling. According to the city record, this quarter lot is within the Kingsborough Heights subdivision and was recorded within the Nansemond County land records as of 1905. The dimensional standards required for newly platted lots in the RM zoning district requires a total lot area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum frontage of 60 feet at the frontage, and a minimum width of 80 feet when measured at the front setback. This property calculates to 7,500 square feet in land area, which is non-conforming when compared to the minimum standards of the RM zoning district. According to the exhibits provided, the side yard setback on this street will not support the encroachment of the estimated 610 square foot addition within the 25-foot side yard setback. After further review of the Unified Development Ordinance, Section 31-801, parentheses E, parentheses 1, parentheses A, parentheses 3, the zoning administrator is allowed to grant up to a 30% reduction on the front, side, and rear yard setbacks on substandard lots. Unfortunately, when comparing the request of 230 Highland Avenue, the administrative variance guidelines will not allow for the 30% reduction on the site. The findings of the applicant's hardship show that the property was obtained in good faith, and the hardship existed prior to the current the current hardship existed prior to the current owner having possession of the dwelling. And the changes and/or amendments to the current RM standards will not support the expansion of the property in the side yard setback adjacent to the street. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this request. I've also shown illustration here of where the actual 25-foot setback would be on the property as related to the survey. It shows that the 25-foot setback actually would project into the center of the home. The property owner is also given exhibits here of where the proposed expansion will take place on the property. This is a side shot from the corner of Kingsborough Street. And then this is also an illustration of the current conditions of the property. It was provided by the homeowner. And then this is also a shot from the exterior, which shows the portion that's adjacent to the portion of Kingsborough Street facing Highland. And then that is another one. So staff is available for any questions that the board may have, and the applicant is also here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Melian. We will now open the public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
How y'all doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm Daryl. This is my husband, Tyrone.
Nice to meet you both.
Yes, we getting the add on because we just got married in February. So we need some bigger space. And where you see right here where the fire pit is, we asking for 5 feet from, it's inside the fence. So we just asking, just to expand our home a little bigger and make our community, a little better. So that's all I have to say. You want to say anything like that?
No.
You sure? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition? Daryl, is there anything you'd like to add? No. Okay, thank you so much. That closes this public hearing. I noted when I drove here today, I drove through Kingsborough, and I love seeing houses being renovated and improved. I actually remember one house as I was driving over, the landscape out front was beautiful and looked like it had just recently been updated from the last time I drove through. So I love seeing these additions and improvements in downtown Suffolk because there's some really beautiful older homes, and I think this is going to be a great addition. So thank you, and congratulations. Is there anything else? I'm sorry.
I was going to make a motion to approve.
Perfect.
Second.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. Epps, the second for Mr. Eslick. Would you please call for a vote, Mr. Skinner?
Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Dominique Epps,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, congratulations, good luck. Hope it all goes smoothly. And our last public hearing today, BZA 16, 2023, 806 West Washington Street, applicant JLO Washington West Apartments, LLC. Mr. Skinner, will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 16, 2023. The applicant, JLO Washington West Apartments, LLC, is requesting a variance to reduce the required number of parking spaces for the placement of an on-site dumpster enclosure. The property is identified as tax map 34G16, double parentheses C*A. The address is 806 West Washington Street. Zoning classification, Central Business District, CBD. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required number of parking spaces for the placement of an on-site dumpster enclosure. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, BA findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff report by Jennifer Cobb, Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon again. As previously stated, the applicant is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 6, Section 31606A7, Table 6062, off-street parking requirements to reduce the required number of parking spaces. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 34G16 parentheses C parentheses asterisk A, located at 806 West Washington Street, Suffolk, Virginia, Suffolk Voting Borough, zoning classification CBD. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15-2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was posted on the property. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required number of off-street parking spaces to place a dumpster enclosure for the Washington Village Apartments. The site consists of 3.806 acres and 2 existing residential structures along Pitch Kettle Road. The first building is 3 stories, and the second building is comprised of 4-story condominiums, which were completed in 2013. Currently, the applicant has a site plan under review with the Planning Department to finish construction of the parcel under new ownership. The utilities, drive aisles, and parking areas were completed back in 2013. The new site plan shows 11 new condominium buildings, which will be 3 stories in height to match the existing residential structures, as well as a future 19-unit apartment building to be completed at a later date. The proposed development requires 186 off-street parking spaces to support the influx in residential units. According to Table 6062, the required number of off-street parking spaces for the condominiums are 2 per unit and 1 for each unit of the apartment complex, as it is classified under multifamily. During site plan review, traffic engineering suggested the dumpster to be removed from the northwest access point to ensure better traffic flow. The applicant is proposing the dumpster enclosure to be placed more centrally to the site to avoid any traffic concerns, which resulted in losing 2 parking spaces. Due to the site being partially constructed and not completed by the previous owner and the challenges associated with trying to complement the existing buildings and parking areas, as well as the proximity to downtown, staff recommends approval of this request. So the circled area is where the mailbox area used to be. They proposed moving that down to where the green line is, and that's where the dumpster enclosure will now be, or proposed dumpster enclosure will be, instead of up in that northwest left corner.
Jennifer, how many units in total are part of, not just this applicant, I know you mentioned the 19 units here and then the additional condominiums, but in total, how many units are there for the development?
I'm going to defer to the applicant for that because I'm not 100% sure.
He can let us, okay, that's fine. But I know we've lowered our standards from when this was previously approved for different types of PUDs and mixed uses, and I mean, I certainly think this would relate, I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn, but it just seems to me that 186 spaces seems like a lot of spaces.
So for each condo, because those buildings, I can't remember how many existers were, each condo, because we treat them as the single families, would be 2 spaces per each one. Some of them have garages attached, some of them do not, and each of the multifamily would just require 1 space. So we've seen several different applicants come before for this parcel, but nobody's been able to make it work quite efficiently, so.
Excited to have it here today, thank you.
I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Terrific.
Also.
We will now open our public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lowry, and I'm here to represent J-Lo Washington West Apartments LLC with this application. Thank you for your consideration. What I'm trying to accomplish here is a lot of the existing infrastructure was already built in place, and I'm trying to utilize a lot of that existing infrastructure. And in going with several site plan reviews of the city of Suffolk, they recommended that I move the dumpster. And so instead of moving the dumpster to a location close to one of the houses, this is a very central location. Also, one of the parking spaces, keep in mind that I'm also providing driveways for each one of these townhomes. So the parking garage is considered as a parking space, and then exterior parking spaces like you see in the center area, and then street parking along Washington Street and Pitchkill Avenue that's already existing goes into this count, but the driveways are not counted in there. So a lot of the residents will have additional places for 18-foot wide driveways where they could park probably an additional 2 cars there. So that was the reason why I felt that that was a very appropriate place to move the dumpster location to, and unfortunately it required me to lose the 2 spaces.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone to speak against the application? Do you have anything you'd like to add, Joseph?
Not at this time, and I'm available for questions.
Perfect, thank you. That closes our public hearing. Before you sit down, do you know how many total units will be a part of this?
Yeah, so there'll be 62. Total there's existing 24.
Okay,
There'll be another additional 14, 14 plus 62, so 76. So right at 100 units in total.
100 units in total?
Yeah.
I'm perplexed. Ms. Cobb, why couldn't he count the townhouse pads behind the units as parking?
They are counted towards the,
Okay, gotcha.
so when he,
So,
the multifamily, that's the part that's not going to have any driveways really associated with it.
sure.
So they
So
did
the
garages.
BZA request to eliminate, I mean, this is unrelated to what we have to do, I apologize, but why did he have to go through this process to eliminate 2 parking spaces?
There's no, I can only do the 10% reduction for like shopping centers and that
Oh.
stuff, not for, yeah, I know. No,
Okay.
I tried because and I was like, let me read through it real quick, and I was like, I can't do it.
Okay,
That's
well,
why.
sorry for the formality, thank you. Do you have any additional questions? I drove past this last week and couldn't believe that no one had scooped it up yet and was moving forward with it. So I am thrilled. This will be such a great addition to Washington Street and this end of town.
Thank you.
Because it has sat vacant for 10 years practically. That's great, thank you. Does anyone have a motion, discussion?
Motion for approval.
I second.
Motion, discussion of the motion? If not, Mr. Skinner, will you please call a vote?
Corey Cornegay,
Yes.
Dominique Epps,
Yes.
Richard Esley,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. I wish you lots of luck. I cannot wait to see this come out of the ground. This is going to be a great addition to Suffolk. I believe that closes. Woo!
Before we close, to staff, I'd like to make a suggestion. I'm really good at beating a dead horse, so we'll go back to beating a dead horse about the fence, if you don't mind, mainly based on what Mr. Cornegie brought up. Patriots Walk is a new subdivision, so we're not talking about Nansemond Shores or an older subdivision where we've had similar issues where people have said, well, I know there are plenty of fences that are not conforming. And what I'd like to do is, before they come back, if staff, since there was a staff person that determined this was not legal, if somebody could just take a half a day or several hours to go through Patriots Walk and see if any other fences would be in violation, and then to follow up on that to see if they're in violation, whether they were permitted, and if they were permitted, how did they get approval? If they weren't permitted, then we're right back to what's happened with the Bowdens. And I think that would clarify some things and help us as we move forward with their application.
I agree with him because where I live at, I personally went through something similar like them. But in my neighborhood, we are not allowed to have 6-foot fences. Out in their neighborhood, they are allowed. I was just requesting a 6-foot fence because I have like a swamp in my neighbor's yard. So I was trying to put up a pool to try to protect the wildlife from coming over into my backyard. If I put the pool back there, I got shot down straight from my home association. They said there is no 6-foot fences in our neighborhood, period. Not at all. But for them to say they allow 6-foot fence and 4 feet fence, to me, that's kind of, yeah. So it's like, it's not uniform. It's not uniform, if you understand what I mean. Like, if you
It
go
seems like their HOA documents don't have additional regulations like your neighborhood does.
Right.
And I think more often than not, if there are predominantly 6-foot private fences, then they are within the regulations of the city and/or the homeowners association. I think the issue we're talking about is if it's a corner lot. And so when somebody goes out there, they're going to find plenty of 6-foot fences, but are they going to find any that are similar to what the Bowdens have in their situation?
There's a stop sign there.
Thank you.
They need a 4-way stop sign here anyway. They should have it.
Is there anything additional that we need to know about? There's probably nothing on the agenda next month except for what we just put back on it. Okay. All right. Well, this does close our public hearing.